greetings once more. It's time for the third part of the steampunk locomotive build, where we're going to be painting and decorating and doing all of that marvellous stuff that we love so much. Well, that's not dilly-dally. Get on with it!
First up, the frames received a coat of paint. This is Vauxhall Burgundy Red and a rattle can from Halfords. This revealed a few areas of bumps that needed sanding, so the fine wet and dry was deployed to deal with it.
My heart is giving you love. Try not to need you so much. You were the one right from the start. Your eyes were saying the same, but now it seems I was easy to shake. I'm gonna shoot you down. Oh, you've given your heart away. I love you from the start.
Once I was happy with that, it was a case of masking up the frames. I sprayed in this order because the frames have more flat surfaces and therefore are easier for masking. Using a sharp scalpel blade in my Swan Morton to cut around the running plate. Always use a fresh blade for this.
You gave me diamonds and gold, a heart that was easily sold. Fell for your eyes, dangerous charms, set myself up for a fall. But now it seems I was easy to shake. I'm gonna shoot you down.
The tender and Loco body were then sprayed up with none other than BR Blue from a Rail Match aerosol can. These cans give a good colour but are devils for clogging up. If you can, try to get some spare nozzles, as I ended up soaking them in thinners and threading a wire through them to try and unclog it. There's still a few runs here that will need to be dealt with. In the meantime, I find brush painting black is easier than spraying a lot of the time. Black is very forgiving.
Now I have seen through your lies. I have no reason to hide. Now that I'm fine, you better believe I won't wait around for your call. Honey, I see you were easy to shake. I'm gonna shoot you down. Oh, you've given your heart away. I love you from the start. Oh, you've given your heart away.
Now for some bling. Using some Revel copper here to pick out the details, I use a cotton bud with the end cut off to stir the paint and then take the thick stuff off that with the brush. I find that the liquid paint in the tin tends not to dry so well. As mentioned in the last video, the dome and chimney were designed for me by Killian. I'll put a link to the shop in the description, as Killian does loads of stuff for 19th century railways.
But what a night, yeah, the place was jumping, the drinks were flowing and the band was pumping. You were so cool, it was insane. The floor parted when they saw you coming. You stepped up, you got your motor running. I watched and sipped on my champagne. Spin me round, my head is in a daze. The room is slowly dissolving. Our legs are moving and we're breathing thickly. And then I start to fantasize. Spin me round.
The boiler bands were masked using Tamiya tape. Remember, always use good masking tape. All else is pain. My dad asked me why I didn't fit the handrails after painting the Loco, and to that I say, good point.
Promise me that you never would be quite as bad as I think you could be. I can see a demon in your Spin me round. My head is in a daze. I can see my smile is driving you crazy. Swing, 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 do that swing thing, tip your hat, give me a ring. I want you to be mine.
There's a few glue marks from the tape here, so a little white spirit on a cotton bud is used to get rid of it, going gently so as not to remove the paint too.
Swing, 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 do that swing thing, tip your hat, give me a ring. I want you to be mine. Promise me that you never
The wet and dry is used to get rid of a few obvious drips before lacquering.
Sweet, 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 sweet.
Now we need some greeblies. Little bits of detail and interest to break up large surfaces. I had a rummage in the box of random bits and found some pipes, no idea where they came from, and some springs.
Swing, 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 that swing thing. I want you to be all mine.
Unsure on where the pipes should go, I settled on the cab side. Rocket card glue was used to attach them as it has a good work time, unlike superglue which tends to dry very quickly and leave a fine mist. After some deliberation, I felt that the dome worked best in the middle. Now for more decoration. These are gold filigree gel transfers I got from wish.com. They're intended for fingernails. Not sure they'd last long on my fingernails, but they should do okay for the Loco. I think it was about £5 for a pack of 30 sheets, but the sheets you get are completely random. They work in the same way as normal transfers, so warm water and microsol are the order of the day. Here's what the Loco looked like, but there's still some things missing. I don't want to make it look too busy, as that's not the aesthetic I'm after, but the front end needs something more. First, the Loco was glossed up with some shiny Halfords lacquer. Thanks to a tip from Honest Tom on RM Web, I got some of these trimmets. They are used in jewellery making, but they also make rather nice spectacle glass rims. Mixing it up a bit here with silver ones to create a contrast with the gold accents elsewhere. The black looked a bit too wet with the gloss varnish, so I sprayed some Tamiya matte lacquer into the lid and then brushed it on. It works well, although you need to wash the brush in thinners afterwards.
You were the one right from the start. Your eyes were saying the same, but now it seems I was easy to shake. I'm gonna shoot you down. Oh, you've given your heart away. I love you from the start. Oh, you've given your heart away. I've loved you from the start.
Now for some custom work. I wanted to create a cow catcher or perhaps a peasant pusher for the front, but to make it nice and shiny, so I got my trusty Stanley vise bought from Amazon a while ago and some brass rod. To try and work out the angles, I sketched a few ideas from a 3D perspective.
Run for cover. Gave me diamonds and gold, a heart that was easily sold. Fell for your eyes, dangerous charm, set myself up for a fall. But now it seems I was easy to shake. I'm gonna shoot you down. I was only a stepping stone.
This required lots of offering it up to the model to test distances and looks.
You've given your heart away, and I will make you pay. Say what you say, I'll do what you do. Don't you be my lover? I mean what I say, I'll make you pay, but you better run for cover. Say what you say, I'll do what you do. Don't you be my lover? I mean what I say, I'll make you pay, but you better run for cover. Now I have seen through your lies. I have no reason to hide. Now that I'm fine, you better believe I won't wait around for your call. Honey, I see you were easy to shake. I'm gonna shoot you down. Oh, you've given your heart away. I love you from the start. Oh, you've given your heart away. I've loved you from the start. Say what you say, I'll do what you do. Don't you be my lover? I mean what I say, I'll make you pay, but you better run for cover. Say what you say, I'll do what you do. Don't you be my lover? I mean what I say, I'll make you pay, but you better run for cover.
Here I am tinning the bits of rod to be soldered by brushing on some liquid flux, then melting solder onto those areas. In this way, I will be joining solder to solder, which is much quicker and easier than trying to add solder whilst holding something. The excess bits of solder are easily filed away. Pretty happy with that? Now it's time to use some 2-part epoxy to stick it on. As it'll be taking a few knocks, the epoxy will be better than superglue since it has some flex to it, and a bit of gap filling quality too.
Make it ooze with the unthinkable. Don't stop till you come first. Life's so unpredictable. Take control of what you're worth. Wasting time's forgivable, but nobody wants to grow old. It's time for the original to come and break the mold.
Some lamps up front are needed. I got these 3D printed ones from Shapeways. They were intended for an O-scale narrow gauge engine, but I think they'll work well here. The insides were painted white, then I dropped some glue and glaze in there to make it look like they had glass fronts.
Remember how you made it here, a game of truth or dare. You rolled the dice with confidence, now the fortunes we can share. The finish line is drawing near, just keep your eye on the prize. A new style is calling you, why don't you try it on the sides? Take it easy, just one step at a time, and baby, you'll be fine. Take a race, don't hold back, get yourself back on track. Keep on moving, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop. Let your senses guide you, shake it up, inspire you. Do anything you want to, but don't stop, don't stop.
They were fixed on with more rocket car glue.
A crowd of hungry animals are eager to sneak in. If you can find that leap of faith, then let the games begin. Awaken to a paradise, I'll smile at your every command. Remember to take the good advice and you'll avoid that sinking sand.
There we have it. I hope you've enjoyed this build, and maybe it'll encourage some of you to build your own steampunk or fantasy-styled locomotive. One of these days, I'll probably make some stock for this to pull. If you have any questions about the build, pop them in the comments below, and I'll try my best to answer them. Farewell for now.